You are absolutely right. India is today seen by the world as one of the preeminent countries in the world to harness technology for the good of its people and, of course, the good of its economy and expanding entrepreneurship and innovation opportunities.
And talking about guardrails, Minister, I think when you look at India's approach to regulation and policy, right? I mean, I think all of us in this room would agree that we've been very much rational in the way in which we've approached this, rather than many countries who are looking at it from a kind of a fear-driven approach to looking at the guardrails that you mentioned, right?
I believe that we are in the cusp of something really big. And if you think the last 5 years were exciting, I still believe that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Morning, and also a warm welcome from my side to NTLF. It's been absolutely phenomenal conversations that we've had so far, and it's my absolute honor today to have this fireside chat with none other than Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar, who is the Union Minister of State for Electronics and IT. And for all of you in this room, you very well know that the minister has been spearheading India into the digital age. Now, today we've heard it from the speakers earlier today, that how technology is shaping the future for all of us here. And our distinguished guest today has clearly been at the forefront of driving forward innovation, progress, digital inclusivity in everything that he has been doing. A very warm welcome to you, Minister. It's great to have you here at NTLF.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good to be here as well.
And I know, Minister, you're hard-pressed for time. The Minister has only time until 11:05. So I'll keep it very crisp because we would love to pick your brains on some of your top-of-mind topics, particularly when it comes to technology and how are we solving some of the biggest problems that we have here. And let me get started with the first question, Minister. So India, you know, has always been using technology to solve really big problems, right? I mean, if you just look at the foundation upon which digital public infrastructures have been based upon, this is the foundation. But however, you've also seen that from some of the questions, and we've had the conversations earlier today, a big part of the world is still grappling with some of the existential risks around AI, right? So I'd love to hear from you about how are you looking at India changing that narrative, and also how are you looking at AI shaping the future for India?
Sindhu, thank you for that question. Look, I think you used the phrase big problems. India has been using technology for big problems. And that I would respectfully state is an understatement of the year, because the vision that Honorable Prime Minister had way back in 2015 was to fix this narrative that India was a very dysfunctional democracy and that governance in India was very dysfunctional and was very patchy. And indeed, the old narrative that 100 rupees that left Delhi, only 15 rupees reached the beneficiary, and there were so many levels of physical intermediation that governance and democracy was either very expensive on one end of the spectrum or absolutely dysfunctional and ineffective on the other end of the spectrum. And so he went all in 2015 to fix that narrative, to fix this issue of a trust deficit between people and those in governance. And he used technology to solve that problem. And when you say a big problem, it is obviously one of the biggest problems in the world, where 1.4 billion Indians have been brought into an era or into a framework where their lives have been effectively transformed because of the DPIs that have then proliferated, starting with the identity layer, the payment layer, the storage layer, the health, wellness, and the many applications that then came on, got stacked upon the India DPI stack. So you are absolutely right. India is today seen by the world as one of the preeminent countries in the world to harness technology for the good of its people and, of course, the good of its economy and expanding entrepreneurship and innovation opportunities. And we are basically taking the same framework into all of these emerging opportunities, Sindhu, including AI. So as the Honorable Prime Minister said in the global conference in New Delhi for AI, in December. He said, we are all in and we intend to fully exploit AI in use cases that impact our people. So health and wellness, education, agriculture, industry, security, law and order, governance, all of these areas we will see, and languages, because we are such a disparate, diverse nation where English and Hindi still account for very little, very small percentage of the total population. Language translation and access to the internet for millions and crores of people. So all of these use cases form the very focus and core of our AI strategy.
Yeah.
And the same principles that we have used to regulate the internet and to create the guardrails on the internet, which is there have to be transparency around every platform that is an AI platform, as we use for any other platform on the internet. They have to be safe and trusted, and they have to be legally accountable for the safety and trust of the consumers that consume or are rendered a service by these AI platforms. So we are essentially taking the same framework. Obviously, this is being retrofitted in some sense to deal with AI and the complexity and the impact of AI that is in terms of safety and trust, which is a factor, a magnitude more than what you would see on regular social media, etc. So we expect AI to be fully proliferating in the digital economy. We expect AI to be a kinetic enabler of the digital economy. But we also expect AI, and we have legal guardrails that we will put and continue to strengthen, which will ensure that AI is safe and trusted. It cannot trespass into areas that cause harm for our consumers, harms for our businesses, and nor would it be allowed to enable harm. So It is not just about a direct accountability, it's also about indirect accountability of those who use those AI platforms or misuse the AI platforms to cause harm. So this is our approach. It's very simple and it's based on principles. And of course, the granularity on it, we have the current law. We expect to have a new law when the Prime Minister is sworn in for the third term. And so we will continue down the same road. Fully exploit the potential, but create the guardrails.
Brilliant. And talking about guardrails, Minister, I think when you look at India's approach to regulation and policy, right? I mean, I think all of us in this room would agree that we've been very much rational in the way in which we've approached this, rather than many countries who are looking at it from a kind of a fear-driven approach to looking at the guardrails that you mentioned, right? So love to hear from you about what are some of the challenges you see when it comes to AI governance, especially when we talk about making it available like the DPIs for 1.4 billion people, and also how can India play a very crucial role in kind of making sure that we have a much more balanced approach when it comes to defining those guardrails?
So, Sindhu, I think being the largest connected democracy in the world today, with 900 million Indians online, and soon going to be 1.3 billion Indians connected to the global internet, and being simply the largest simple global block on the single block on the global internet, I think we have an opportunity and a responsibility in a way to shape the way that the world thinks and the world cooperates, and the world's leading like-minded open societies cooperate in creating a framework that harnesses the potential of AI, harnesses the potential of indeed any technology, but has a cooperative mechanism of making sure that we create the guardrails that protect all our consumers and all our citizens. The reason for this cooperative approach, and we put this forth in the GPA summit in 2024, which was received very enthusiastically by the 29 countries that attended, and we are a chair for this year, is that the internet, as you know, Sindhu, more than anybody else, and I'm sure your audience knows, has no boundaries. And it's absolutely impossible to regulate, for one country to regulate however great their legislation be, to regulate the harms on the internet or harms caused by AI on the internet, because these are almost always extra-jurisdictional. The victim is in one jurisdiction, the perpetrator is in the second jurisdiction, and the crime or the harm is committed in some cases in the third jurisdiction. So therefore, there is no escaping the need for an alignment around principles, alignment around the principles that will be the underpinning of this global framework. And India has offered to lead the charge on creating this draft framework. We expect to have a draft framework discussed, debated before June, July of this year, and have a mid-year GPA summit where, if not all countries, I mean, it's impossible to make all countries agree, but that most countries, including those in the global south, who have long been kept out of technology and being excluded from any debate about the future of tech, that they also participate and we agree on these guardrails. What the nature and form and shape of these rules and these protocols will be, we will still need to see. But they will essentially be around this basic principle, Sindhu, that every platform has to be legally accountable for any harm that it causes or enables. And conversely, or as a corollary, that they should not cause harm or they should not enable criminality, or the part of the platform should not enable that. So I think that is the direction we are going. And I'm very gratified to see countries like the US, countries like UK. I was at the Bletchley AI Safety Summit. Essentially, everybody aligning to this whole concept of safety and trust, and safe and trusted AI. It used to be the argument was, or the narrative was about responsible ethical AI. And I always found that very mystifying because your values and your ethics could be very different from mine, and we'll spend the rest of our life having a debate about your ethics versus mine. So I think instead of responsible and ethical AI, which used to be the way we looked at AI, I think this has to be a lot more absolute, clear, unambiguous, that it is safe and it is trusted. And safety is absolutely an absolute inverse correlation to harm and criminality. So I think we need to go down the road of defining this protocol and agreement to ensure that AI is safe. AI is good, AI is great, but it remains safe.
Yeah, I think, Minister, that I think is a perfect segue to my next question, which is around trust, because a lot around having those safe guardrails is also based on trust and kind of having that visibility and transparency. And if you ask me, this whole government-industry collaborations are absolutely integral to India's tech landscape, which fosters that trust and transparency, right? And how do you think India can prioritize trust as a key differentiator moving forward? And especially, like you said, having those guardrails in place and creating that safety in terms of usage of technology, I think trust can be a big differentiator for us as India, taking forward our technology innovations.
Oh, absolutely, Sindhu. You know, it used to be the case pre-COVID that whenever people talked about the global value chains or global supply chains, whether it was for hardware, digital products, or indeed digital services, cost used to be a big determinant. And then it used to be quality and, you know, the capabilities on the second hand. And now firmly, I believe, after COVID, there is a third attribute that people are looking at, whether you're a government, whether you're an enterprise, whether you're a consumer anywhere in the world. Trust is as important now an attribute as an expectation from a partner country or a partner enterprise. And I think India is well poised to fulfill that expectation because we are an open democracy. And this is a government today, for example, every step that we take, whether it is the digital personal data protection law, whether it is the IT rules, whether it is the new legislation, the pre-consultation for it, or indeed cybersecurity direction, every step of this is done in a manner where the government is almost the stenographer that is taking down the notes from all the other stakeholders, including industry and the consumers. And we are essentially just collating from the various stakeholders their view and then progressing that forward, as opposed to government being the architect, designer, author of policies and regulations. We believe that the way to create a robust, digital, trusted $1 trillion digital economy in India is really to work in close partnership with the industry on one hand, the consumers and the small businesses that are effectively consumers of these applications on the other hand, and work together to create something which is win-win, that it creates more opportunity for those who want to commercially exploit the internet, those who want to avail of services and improve efficiencies and productivity of their own businesses, they get an access to it. And all of this is done with safety and trust in mind, without hampering innovation. So I think This is our approach, and I squarely can confirm to you that it is central to our Prime Minister's vision of how to position India in this very, very rapidly redrawn, changing digital economy, includes even electronics manufacture and hardware design for the future, including semiconductors. So trust is a very important expectation that the countries of the world can have from us, and that we will deliver to them.
Yeah. No, thank you, Minister. You talked about trust. I also want to touch upon the topic of talent, because today morning we clearly saw in the numbers that our chairman presented to us about talent being our biggest differentiator in this age of AI. Now, how do you see moving forward that we are equipped and we have that differentiator always in place? Because technologies are changing so fast, and we all want to make sure that the talent that we work with has that differentiated edge. Any thoughts from your side, Minister?
You're absolutely right. And I don't see this as a differentiator, Sindhu. This is we believe in the government that this is going to be a strategic competitive strength and advantage that we want to build. Not just in terms of numbers, not just in terms of cost, in terms of the actual global competitiveness of our talent. If you see these areas, and the way we are calling the future of technology is that we have moved from ITES in 2014, expanded that to include the consumer internet and the D2C innovation that we see today. And we are moving now to include into the wide spectrum, discovery, invention of devices, electronics products, AI applications, models, semiconductors. And a lot of this is going to be now IP driven, and we are going to go into this next wave of innovation and startup. And core to this is the central theme that I'm seeing in terms of the opportunities for the next decade, this decade of technology opportunities, is talent.
Yeah.
And we are today working, for example, I'll give you an example of semiconductors. There is certainly a global shortage in talent. And I don't mean talent as in qualified engineers alone, but I'm talking about material science, chemistry, physics, and so many of the different areas that today encompass the semiconductor ecosystem. So we went ahead, worked with industry, the global giants, the global names, the leaders, and redrafted a curriculum, a multi-year curriculum that covers diplomas, undergraduate, masters, doctorate, and postdoctoral scholars to create globally competitive talent from the higher education ecosystem. And that is being implemented from 2023 March.
Right.
And we will see the same model for AI. We do not want to just create AI coders. We don't want to just create Python programmers. We want to be able to do the best in prompt engineering. We want to be able to build the best models. We want to be able to do things that are at the cutting edge. So it's the same way that we are doing for semiconductor. We are starting a Bharat Semiconductor Research Center. It is our idea, it's the Prime Minister's vision, that we will have a number of innovation and research centers for AI that will be funded by the government, but will have deep partnerships with academia and the industry as central to making sure that we create the next generation of AI talent in India. And we are not simply talking about AI talent for India in India. It's about AI talent in India for India's own AI economy, as well as for the globe in terms of competitive talent. So our ambitions in a lot of ways are pretty significant, and we are matching all that thought with not just talk, but with action.
Super. Thank you, Minister. And talking about ambition, we are not going to let you go without answering this one final question we have to you, because we have all the tech leaders here in the room, and you've always told us that the tech industry needs to reimagine our aspirations. So what is your aspiration for this industry, and where do you see all of us at the end of the decade?
No, look, so I don't say this to give anybody a hard time. I'm not saying this because I'm a politician and I'm supposed to make speeches. But I genuinely, as somebody who's been in tech for 3.5 decades, I believe that we are in the cusp of something really big. And if you think the last 5 years were exciting, I still believe that was just the tip of the iceberg. What we are presented with in terms of opportunities today, whether you're a large legacy company, whether you're a foreign company based in India, whether you're a startup who's who's wanting to be a startup or who's already a startup, I think the opportunity is just immense. And, I started my entrepreneurship at a time when the whole concept was a frowned on concept. And you have almost a perfect storm here. The world wants newer and newer disruptions in this coming decade. We have this newfound confidence in our country in the last 5 years that if you think of it and we apply ourselves, we can achieve what we want to achieve. And then you have the governments and the academic ecosystem behind the government that is today playing this enabling role of the kind that I unfortunately never had in my time. And I always tell people, I wish I had this when I was around. But coming together of all this, Sindhu, I believe represents a tremendous opportunity for industry, anybody who's a stakeholder in this technology ecosystem, to really reimagine your ambitions, think big, think out of the box, and really, for a lot of years we were conditioned to do services for companies and enterprises and governments around the world. But we really can step into innovation ownership, IPs, devices, and really getting into discovery and invention of a kind that we have never had in the last 60, 75 years. And I think this is the right time. And I like to always say the future is bright, the future is India.
Super. Thank you so much. The future is indeed bright. They're absolutely inspirational talking to you, Minister. And thank you so much for taking time for us here at NTLF. And look forward to seeing you in person soon. Thank you so much. Thank you.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASSCOM YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.